Calaroga Shark Media.
Hi there, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news, a daily briefing on stand-up comedy, comedians, and the comedy industry. This one from a while back. I pre-taped today to accommodate my schedule. I had to do some stuff yesterday. Jerry Seinfeld and Nate Bargatze had spoken to Polestar. But let's pick away at this. Nate talked about how he's been finding comedians. He said, I've done every show you could possibly do. I've done bowling alleys to arenas. We have a YouTube page where we have the showcase, and they're doing 10 minutes, and we try to shoot some half hours with comics doing an hour and try to give them a path. If someone pops, they pop. I've been going after a lot of older comedians. They could be my age or whatever, but they have the chops and the experience to be able to create this material. One in particular is Greg Warren, very funny comedian. He's been doing comedy for 30 years. I brought him in. He's come with me. We were in Kansas City, and he got a date at the Comedy Club of Kansas City 2 months later. We do 2 shows in the arena there. Out of doing 10 minutes on 2 of the arena shows, they added 14 shows. That's just from him doing 10 minutes, but he murdered so hard. We had another one. Derek Strope did 9. Derek Strope, recently out on Netflix, is fantastic. Jerry Seinfeld said, what's changed in the past 20 years for comedians? It's like a destination. We're going to go see this comedian. This is an important thing for us to do. What changed? Nate said, a good beginning was your comedian documentary. I come from that. We watched you build a new set. I'd never seen an inside look like that, especially for someone like me who's not from New York. I was already trying to do comedy and seeing it, but I wasn't seeing someone that was you go and not get laughs at Gotham or wherever, and you run around to the clubs and you work on this thing. You started it, essentially. It was a large group of people around my age that kind of made it, and like, all right, we want to go do this. I want to be a stand-up comedian. After that, comics weren't getting sitcoms anymore. That route was shut down. Now you're just going to do stand-up. Then you had alt rooms open up, and it started to expand. Another one was Dane Cook. When he did Tourgasm and was doing arenas on HBO, he was the biggest comic on the planet. Then you're like, this dude's a rock star from just being a comedian. Then you had your Jim Gaffigans, Sebastian. You had comics having full careers and doing big arenas, big things in stand-up. Brian Regan's another. Never did stuff in the Hollywood world. Was a comedian that got big, and Netflix was a part of that. Comedy Central was a giant part of that as well. You, Jerry, said something about what hurt sitcoms. What was going to be funnier than a stand-up comedian? You can't make a movie have as much laughs as stand-up. To that, Jerry said, it seemed like those forums deteriorated. The reason was that someone has to prove each thing in the movie or TV show, whereas stand-up, we just go right to them and say, what do you think of this? Having a third party make a decision was an obstruction to being funny. That was one of the reasons my show did well in the 90s. It was Larry David and I, and nobody said anything to us. We just did what we wanted, and there was no network involvement really at all. Marc Maron caught up with Consequence of Sound, and they discussed how Maron works politics in. Maron said, I didn't make a statement, I made a joke. That's what I do. An example of that was his comments about the Riyadh Comedy Festival, in which Maron said, how do you promote that for the people that brought you 9/11? Maron said, I made a joke about it, and I guess that joke had some resonance and kind of sparked a more culturally active look at the participants in that festival. Consequence writes, on this subject, his voice dips with contempt, Maron said. It's about money, dude. It's really about, can you rationalize taking that money? And most people can, because that's the world we live in. And I'm not even on any kind of high horse. I get it. Hey, all money's crappy. Maron clarifies there is no dollar amount that would have enticed him to Riyadh. He also does not buy the argument that those comedians were spreading Western values. Maron said, autocratic countries that become culturally westernized, I don't think it ever changes the politics of those countries. It just does what it does here. Creates more distraction. A sense of freedom of choice. Because when you have a few different restaurants and a few different places you can go online, adopting Western culture, it's not helping us right now. Maron continued, if you can rationalize taking the money and live with that, that's how this world works. You know, our president, who's supposed to be an example of something American, might be the most American president we've had in years. Who knows? Get away with what you can get away with. Get all the money. You can double down on anything. Don't take responsibility or apologize for anything. Jessica Kirson was one of the comedians who played the Riyadh Comedy Festival. She caught up with Pride Source. They did not talk about said festival. They talked about touring, and Jessica Kirson said, you can't make a living from the internet. It helps, but it's more that a lot of us put up videos to build an audience we can perform for on the road because people follow you. They look at your schedule. They look at where you're performing. Plus, I've been doing live stand-up. I just started my 27th year, and online is not the same, because you don't have the audience reaction. Now that I'm performing for 1,000 people each time, it's very different from the years and years of just doing it and hoping an audience shows up. The demand is there now. The traveling is very hard, the planes and the hotels and all that stuff, but the shows are amazing. So when you get there, it's all right, but on the way, it's a lot. They were curious how the bit where Jessica turns away from the audience to share her internal monologue evolved. Jessica said, I just did it on stage one night. I don't even remember where it was or when. For a long time, it didn't work. People were like, this woman has a mental disorder, until I realized it was a save line. I had to do it when a joke didn't go over well or when there was awkward silence. Then the response was so positive, I kept doing it. From the LA Times, in Los Angeles' Miracle Mile neighborhood, flanked by the La Brea Tar Pits, The LA County Museum of Art and a diner is a dense concentration of charming Art Deco and Spanish Mediterranean-style apartment buildings. And on the corner of 4th and Cochrane, you'll find a plaque. Strapped to a street sign, you'll find a golden plaque commemorating Conan O'Brien's time living on Cochrane. The plaque features Conan's face as a bronze bust with a short description of his life there before he became an Oscars host. It is not official. It was created by the Cochrane Committee of Conan Connoisseurs. I guess they are the CCCC, which we're told is actually just one guy who lives on Cochrane Avenue, occasionally listens to Conan's podcast, had some free time and no real authority to put up a monument, but did it anyway. We know all this because it says that on the inscription. I love everything about this story. So who is the Cochrane Committee of Conan Connoisseurs? Well, it's Tim Hamill. He's the entire committee. He wanted people to know that Conan O'Brien used to live on that block in the 1980s. The plaque riffs on the Baseball Hall of Fame plaques and the cream-colored California historical signs. The CCCC explains, I wanted something that would look like a plaque from far away that would catch people's attention and make them want to come over and read it. He then headed to Staples, printed out a large, sturdy poster, and fastened it to the stop sign on his block. In describing Conan O'Brien's time on Cochrane, the plaque reads, "It was a time of struggle, ingenuity, and questionable mayonnaise-based decisions. From these humble beginnings, the street witnessed the rise of a comedy icon. May the monument," quote, "a poster affixed with zip ties, inspire Cochrane Avenue residents to chase their dreams, embrace their originality, and one day, upgrade to a home with more than one bathroom." Maria Bamford was on the Last Laugh podcast. They pointed out that Netflix CEO Ted Sarandos said her show Lady Dynamite is the best original series the streamer has ever released. Bamford said that clearly isn't true. There is no best, there is no worst. There's just a bunch of people out there doing a craft and doing it beautifully in all sorts of ways. We are reminded that last year, Billboard ranked Maria Bamford the 9th best comedian of the 21st century, which is, of course, crazy talk. There's an episode somewhere in the December feed if you want to hear me comment about that. Nothing against Maria Bamford, but seems a little high. Should we talk about that list? Let's talk about that list. Where's that list? Let me pull that up for us. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but looking at their list. 1, Dave Chappelle, of course. 2, Chris Rock, fine pick. 3, CK, even though he's canceled, fine pick. 4, Mulaney, sure, fine. 5, Bill Burr. Bill Burr had a good 24 years before losing it last year. Jerry Seinfeld, you might think of him as more of a 20th century comedian, but if you've seen him in the 21st century, can't argue with that. Kevin Hart at 7. Norm Macdonald at 8. I don't want to debate Norm Macdonald today. That's fine. Bamford is the 9. Robin Williams at 10. Is he a 20th century comedian or 21st? See, I don't like that pick either. Sebastian at 11 is just insane. Nate at 12 is way too high. Sandler at 13, we've discussed this. Attell at 14 is criminally underrated. Hedberg at 15. Love Hedberg, but it's 2 albums, or 3 if you want to count the posthumous one and out. But okay, love Hedberg. If you listen to the show, you know I love Hedberg. Gervais at 16. Wanda Sykes at 17 is a little crazy to me. 18, Patrice O'Neill. You've heard me speak. I did not like the man, so I'm biased. Ali Wong at 19. Sarah Silverman at 20 seems high. Gabe Iglesias at 21. Gaffigan at 22. He might not call you back, but it seems really, really underrated. Trevor Noah at 23. Billy Connolly at 24. And Jon Stewart at 25. And I respect Jon Stewart a lot, but I'm not sure he's in the same category in terms of stand-up. I know he tours, whatever. All right, so back to Bamford, who's number 9 on that list. She said of the list, it's just a trend and clearly not true. She suggested other women like Nikki Glazer and Kathy Griffin should be on the list as well. But she did repost it. She said, oh no, I retweeted it. Just to be clear, the propaganda has been reposted. Sheng Wang, one of my favorite current comedians, finds the most ordinary of things to be funny. He said it's about taking a step back and look at the world as if you're an alien, meaning you're not taking any of it for granted. You're just in awe of what this thing is. But I'm also taking a step in and looking closely at what it appears to be. Some of his inspirations, photographers William Eggleston and Elliot Erwitt. Stay with me. Sheng Wang explains Eggleston would take pictures of a tricycle, but from a very low angle, and Elliot Erwitt was catching interesting and funny little moments when things in life just lined up, like melons on a stand that looks like a lady's boobs. Wang tries to work clean, explaining the reason I don't really use profanity is because I want to find the most unique and specific way to say what I'm trying to say. I think part of my comedy is to remind people that we're human and we're not separate from nature. I think it's important for us to pay attention to and appreciate the flora and fauna and how the ecosystems work. In the past, I've done a kind of comedy show with pictures of plants that I've taken. I might go back to doing some version of that. And that is your comedy news for today. Catch you tomorrow.